35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15. 14.
13.
12.
11.
10. 9. 8.
7.
6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up.
Good evening and welcome to Mouthwash, a minty fresh take on politics. And yes, 52 episodes in the books. And this is our anniversary show. And we thank you for tuning in. And wow, we figured for an anniversary show, let's get our leading views, our leading post views, our guy back on that's really had the most views of any show we've ever had. And that's Dr. Dan Stock. And well, we have just an action-packed show tonight, and hopefully we can get it all done in an hour. May run over a little bit tonight, but we're going to get started with it. And hey, I'll tell you what, this is exciting that we actually made it a year. And you can see I have my coronavirus behind me here, and I do not have corona this time, because if you recall, last time I had coronavirus when Dr. Galvin and Dr. Stock was on, so that was a lot of fun. One little thing I want to say is, if you are a member of the People Over Politics page, that is where we do the questions we sometimes ask for peeps on the streets, and actually we sort of surround our show with those questions. So hey, get on there and you can participate in the polls. You can vote on that. And wow, we had over 100 people participate in one of our questions that we'll be showing here later in the show. But hey, I want to go ahead and bring on our Dr. Stock. And so I'm going to go ahead and play. Hey, this is the introduction I gave him Saturday at the conference we were at. So here you go. Enjoy this. And then on the other side, we'll see Dr. Stock and see what he's up to. And then we'll get on with it.
This is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics.
That would not be it.
Honor of introducing Dr. Stock today, Dr. Dan Stock. And he's actually a veteran of the Mouthwash Talk Show, which I do. And if you saw me up here, we're doing a few peeps on the streets. And that's where I go out and ask questions to people on the streets. And then we play them on our show on Tuesday.
All right, that was awesome. My whole computer just shut down. So I'm going to try to get this working again here. I have to reload everything and get this interview going. I don't know what happened there. I've had a few troubles tonight with the internet. So let me get this reloaded and see if we can't get this going.
honor of introducing Dr. Stock today, Dr. Dan Stock, and you know, he's actually a veteran of the Mouthwash Talk Show, which I do. And if you saw me up here, we're doing a few peeps on the streets, and that's where I go out and ask questions to people on the streets, and then we play them on our show on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock. So that's a shameless plug. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because Dr. Dan is going to be on our show this Tuesday. So just to rewind, as you know, he's Mount Carmel, claim to fame viral video. I find that interesting. We're going viral about a virus. But got him claim to fame. And there was a doctor, Dr. Galvin, out in South Carolina that really took offense to what Dr. Stock was saying. So I actually had Dr. Stock on one week, Dr. Galvin on, and then the next week I had them both on. And in honor of those guys, I got COVID on Saturday. So I actually had really good advice from both sides on that Tuesday. So anything for the show. But Dr. Stock is a very amazing doctor. His practice is just up the road here, and he's passionate about this. You know, he's out, suspended his practice to come out and educate people. And what I find interesting is after that Mount Carmel video, the fact checkers came out and they were fact checking this and fact checking that. Now we have a little time under our belt, which is interesting because time bears out a lot of falseness. And so I actually today went over some of those fact checkers, and I was thinking about Dr. Stock, and I was thinking, man, these people are wrong. They were saying Dr. Stock was wrong, but now you look at it, as Jim Bob talked about, hey, this vaccine doesn't stop the spread. You still get it, and the masks really don't work. Who said that about 8 months ago? I don't know. He might be here, but it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stock and give him a round of applause.
Am I on? Again.
Your sound is not very good.
I just don't know how it sounds now.
Your sound is really bad. So I don't. Check your microphone and see what there's on that. Well, we have some technical problems tonight. So I guess I could tell a bad dad joke. And our astute audience sounds like a robot. They said our astute audience said it was Mount Vernon, not Mount Carmel. I don't know.
Yes. Today's now. I'm sorry. You're talking to
Hey Dan, your audio is horrible. I don't know what you have going there, but do you have another microphone? Maybe you can hook up or maybe reconnect and see what's up.
I can jump back in. That works.
Please, because it sounds like you're on a mission there. So, this is fun times here on this. I'm trying to think. Oh, I know what. I can play a commercial. How about this? We got a show coming on tomorrow, and it is going to be actually Lisa, my lovely wife, Do Something Indie, is coming on. So we'll play this commercial, and hopefully we'll have Dr. Stock on the other side of this with actually stuff we can hear. So let's watch this little commercial for the show tomorrow night, Do Something Indie.
Now.
Yes, we are going to have a show tonight. I promise you. I love it. It's our high budget. So, Dr. Dan, how are you this evening?
Good. How are you doing, John?
Oh, much better now. That was hurting my ears before. So, it was good. So we have a good thing. We have good stuff for you tonight. We have this point and counterpoint that's going to be fun to do. But hey, let's catch us up on where you are and what's going on with you right now in life after 6-8 months after the Mount Vernon school board meeting, not Mount Carmel like somebody had.
Mount Comfort.
Is it Mount Comfort?
It's Mount Comfort Community School Corporation.
I thought I had it right the first time. It's like, now I'm so confused. Aunt B in Mount Vernon, in that on Andy Griffiths.
I think it might be.
All right, we'll have to get Marty Fife on that. So, hey, bring us up to speed real quick, and then we're going to jump into, we're going to do small talk, and then we're going to jump into this new segment called Point and Counterpoint. And we're going to have a little discussion, and then we'll get to our panel. So, how you doing?
Can't complain too loudly. Luckily, the practice is still growing. We had to shut it down for a while because I just couldn't bring people in as fast and be the kind of doctor with them I want to be. I'm now the Associate Chief Medical Director for America's Frontline Doctors, and we're working to set up a group of clinics that open around the country that are direct pay with physicians who agree not to make any money on anything that they give advice about, so that we can avoid the financial conflicts of interest that led to the disastrous advice we got on COVID-19. And very happy to be part of helping set those clinics up. Exciting for me.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know you've been real busy, and we appreciate you taking time out to come on our show. And Saturday, you told me you liked coming on here because you liked the debate. And yeah, we got some, we'll break out a tinfoil hat on occasion if we need to liven it up. And, we try to appreciate everybody's opinion and keep it a little bit light because, heck, it's just so heavy with what's going down these days that sometimes we need to stop and take a breath. So, hey, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and play small talk. And then we're going to come on with my good friend Kevin Rusk, and we're going to have a little point and counterpoint. I'm sure he's going to have a couple questions, so he's just going to sort of interview you, and you're going to have a discussion. So let's go ahead and see what Mark Small has to say today on Small Talk.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk Stories. First 2022, I want to talk about vaccination. I talked to a college classmate of mine who's on faculty at a medical school. I said, if there was a single fact, a silver bullet that would shoot down the anti-vaxxer position, what would it be? And we both came to the same conclusion. This is a very complex scientific situation, medical situation. There's no single fact, but here are some facts. One, if you're not going to believe the numbers, as the idiot who's the Attorney General of the state of Indiana says, can't believe those numbers, I don't know what to tell you. If you're not going to believe that people who are vaccinated are less likely to die, as the stats show, then I don't know what to tell you. But if you're going to believe people like the former President of the United States, who is a real champion of people who are anti-vaccine, he got the shot, he got the booster, so did his kids. I've noticed a lot of the people won't answer questions about whether they've been vaccinated. They'll talk about how you have the right not to be vaccinated, but they sure got the shot. Either that or they keep their mouths shut. So it's your choice, but our freedoms overlap. Somebody has a freedom to speak. Somebody has a right to privacy. Those are all things that we work out in our society. You can say no to the vaccine. That's the law. But other people can be harmed. You could be harmed too. If you get the vaccine, you can still catch COVID, but your chances of dying are far less. There was a Hoosier who did a car safety commercial in the 1950s. It's James Dean. He was with Gig Young on this commercial, and he surprised everybody because at the end, he was supposed to give the line, "The life you save." He goes, "Remember, be careful out there because the life you save could be mine." You need to think about other people, and other people out there are at risk. So get the shot. Otherwise, St. Francis University, STFU. I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. You can catch me on Civil Discourse Now, Tuesdays at 7. Peace, love, happiness, freedom, nanu, nanu.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a subdued Mark Small there tonight on that. So that'll give you all or something here. So it looks like Kevin is muted. Is he not supposed to be muted?
I'm good.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. So
good.
So let me introduce Mr. Kevin Rusk to me. He is. You live in South Carolina, is that correct?
No, the better Carolina, North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina. So Dr. Galvin was from South Carolina. So apparently, Dr. Stock, people from Carolina have issue with you. So, but he's an attorney brother of mine. He's obviously a little younger than I am and a lot wiser. But he's an attorney. And what kind of law do you practice, Kevin?
I'm a civil litigator. So basically, if you've got a problem, we try to fix it. But we do a lot of small business work, right? So if you start a small business like this podcast and sort of build it, need to incorporate and those sort of things, we kind of help you cradle to grave on that.
Yeah, well, don't let the people on this show, because nobody's getting paid. Don't, I don't want them unionizing on me and demanding all these money. And I can see them laughing right now backstage about the fortune that they're getting ready to realize on this. But Dave, this is a new segment we have here. It's going to be counterpoint. It's, we try to show all different viewpoints of things. And, Kevin has some questions and some opinions about COVID that are a little bit probably different than what Dr. Stock would have. And honestly, sometimes to cut through the chase, it's good to just do a face-to-face, just talk about it a little bit. So Kevin, I'll let you start with a question for Dr. Stock, and let's see. I'm sure he's going to have an answer. Let's see how good an answer he has.
Is okay? Call you Dr. Dan? Is that okay?
You can call me Dan if you want. I work fine with Dan.
Well, we used to do a bunch of med mal defense, and Dan is fine if that's what you want to do. That's okay with me. And so I saw that med mal defense.
Oh, okay, that's different.
Defense. Don't worry. I've countless nights defending doctors wrongly accused. And so, I saw that 6-minute clip, and it circulated in my community, as it did up in yours in both Mount Carmel and Mount Vernon. And the primary takeaway that I had two thoughts, one sort of comical, one sort of more serious. The more comical one, and I don't mean to offend you, but I thought, my God, this is the scene when Elle Woods goes and gets the bulldog back. And she throws out a bunch of legal words that do mean something, just not that, right? And she's successful. She gets the bulldog back, right? I mean, she carried the day. And you're obviously a medical doctor, and no doubt a gifted one. And you used words that mean what they mean, but I felt in the context they were extremely misleading, probably inaccurate. But you got what you wanted, which was this, maybe you didn't anticipate a viral clip, but it happened. You sort of carried the day there with the words that you were able to use in that very quick 6-minute clip. And I thought, my God, it is entirely possible, maybe even likely, someone didn't get vaccinated or continued to justify not being vaccinated because of this. Maybe they didn't die. Maybe they didn't get infected. Maybe they did get infected and somebody else got infected. And so it continued. And I thought the crux of your video, in my estimation, forget about the masks. Well, we can talk about the masks, but was that the vaccine causes a deranged, that was your word, immune response that makes you more likely to have an adverse COVID outcome. And unless you think every single medical hospital administrator that is interviewed is lying, their beds are full of the vast majority of unvaccinated people, not vaccinated.
So I think one of the things we do.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Dan. Can you come back on again? That audio is horrible again.
Again?
Yeah, again. So just come back on. Yeah, do it again. All right. Hey, that was a very good question there, Kevin. I want to hear the answer, but I want to hear the answer. So
no, I do too. And I hope I didn't imply that he had any ill intent. However, when I hear that he leaves his practice, right, and starts a nonprofit, and I appreciate that nonprofits don't profit, but the people that work there do make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I hear that we leave our practice after this viral video, we're now capturing a market that we've created, right? So there's 40% or so of the population that is nodding their head at Dr. Dan and going, "This is the most brilliant man I've ever heard. This is confirmation bias, and I love it." And we're all guilty of confirmation bias. But when I hear you leave your practice, start a nonprofit, it gives me some real pause as to what the motivations are.
Well, let me help you with your pause there. First of all, never left my practice. Second of all, our nonprofit has absolutely no paid employees. Everyone's a volunteer. No one's getting paid at all.
Okay. And I assume you make all those disclosures.
I know so little about the laws regarding these nonprofits. We have somebody taking care of that, but I know that we have no one who's getting paid a salary, and I don't get a paid salary either. When I do lectures, you get donations.
Okay, so when I heard that you stopped practicing, that was not correct.
That is not correct. No, I never stopped practicing. We stopped taking in new patients or markedly slowed down the rate of that because I simply couldn't give them the attention I wanted to when I was so diverted and still take care of the ones I had.
Understood.
So I think one of the things you have to understand when you discuss about these vaccines is to clear up some terms. And the terms that are being used when people talk about this epidemic of the unvaccinated is misleading for two reasons. First of all, whenever you see antibody-dependent enhancement develop, you always see the first uptake in the unvaccinated, naive patients. That's because of the increased shedding coming from the vaccinated who cannot properly fight the infection. And
seriously, shedding? You think this vaccine sheds?
And that's what's been seen in all the other cases of ADE, by the way. That's not really something.
No, that's the other cases of ADE. I'm talking about this case. You think this vaccine causes shedding?
Well, yeah, that's actually been very well demonstrated that these people.
Please cite your work. Please cite it.
It's actually on the foundation's website if you want to go look at it. But we've actually.
I'd love to go see that source material.
At the end of the day, data is what matters most.
Well, I agree, which is why I asked for this data very early on at about 9 a.m. And I couldn't get access to it, which I don't blame you for. It could have been a Google issue. I got it at 5 p.m. But you volunteered to be an expert witness at this Mount Vernon hearing. I would have a very difficult time if I was representing you to qualify you as an immunologist, as an expert. You don't have the credentials. Neither do I, and that's okay.
Well, so first of all,
what I would do is I'd look at your data. I wouldn't just look at your conclusions that you offered in the 6-minute conclusory rant. But I would look at your underlying data, I would go through it, and we'd talk about it. But I don't have that data, which makes this a little more difficult.
So, okay, well, this is the best debate you can do without being well informed. Best thing I can tell you is the data all indicates when you collect the data properly, and you didn't let me mention the other thing that goes into this definitional thing, and that is that when people claim that these people are unvaccinated, they're actually counting anybody within the first 2 or 3 weeks after their second shot as being unvaccinated.
Okay. So what percentage of that do you think really is? Okay. So
data
them out.
The data indicates that the vast majority of the infections are going to develop during that first.
Do you concede that the vast majority of people in the hospitals right now are unvaccinated? Do you acknowledge that?
Can I ask you to quit interrupting me? That would be very appreciated if
you
you'd
can ask.
Yes. Okay. So this isn't going to be much of a debate if you keep doing that. All right.
Well, I agree.
So one of the things you have to understand about this is the data is very difficult to get because the CDC doesn't collect the data scientifically. If you start saying that we're going to call everybody from the day of their first shot till 3 weeks after their second shot, that we're going to call them unvaccinated, then you will be taking a great number of people who may be harmed immunologically by the vaccine, and you will be attributing their harm to their naivete, not to the vaccine. And that is the way the CDC collects the data. So their data is questionable simply because of the way they define unvaccinated. They take vaccinated people, call them vaccinated, and if you're trying to prove or disprove ADE, you will automatically screw up your data because you've done it that way.
Let me ask you this directly.
Yes.
Do you believe, based on your comments at Mount Vernon, that the vaccinated people are more likely to be infected with COVID? That you believe that the majority of people in hospitals right now are fully vaccinated? Is that your opinion?
So those are two different questions. All right.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're two different questions.
No. So you believe that vaccinated people were more likely to be infected. Is that correct?
Okay, that's one question. Let's let him answer that.
That's one question. And first of all, we're going to have to define what infection means. If you mean that these are not terms that most people understand the meaning of. Now, you're going to have to decide what you mean by the definition of infection. Every human being will become infected with COVID-19. All right? So the question has to be, are you more likely
literally every?
Yes, there's no way to escape the virus.
Let him finish, Kevin.
Categorically wrong.
Kevin, you got to quit interrupting and let me explain, or this isn't much of a debate. All right?
Well, you didn't have much fun at Mount Vernon. Shoes on the other foot down, buddy.
All right, Kevin, are you going to stop interrupting?
Probably not.
There we go.
Okay, can you mute him and then I'll. Everyone's going to get infected because the virus has reservoirs. It's impossible to avoid. It is the nature of respiratory viruses that they infect people asymptomatically and pass from human to human. Even the CDC admits the thing is not going to be avoided, that it's going to become endemic. It's never been able to avoid any other respiratory viral pathogen that had reservoirs. They've all become endemic, and this one will too. So everybody's going to get infected. The question is, do you have a positive test infection? Do you have symptoms? Do you die? Do you get hospitalized? These are the more salient questions. And then you have to add to those questions, what happens to off-COVID things, like dying from non-COVID related illness? So when you start putting all of those together, the data would indicate when it's best collected, defining someone as vaccinated as from the day they get their first shot, that yes, if you're vaccinated, you're more likely to have a positive test. And
Who's sitting in the hospitals right now with COVID, doctor? Vaccinated or unvaccinated?
By what definition do you want to put in there? By the definition.
What does vaccinated mean to you? You tell me what vaccinated means to you.
Back. Hold on a second, Kevin. Your audio is going bad again. You must have like that, 99-cent internet, because go ahead and come back in again because your audio is getting bad.
Doctor, you tell me what vaccinated means to you.
Yeah, so let's let him come back in and answer that second question, because I do want to know. I mean,
listen, either every medical professional that I've ever heard interviewed is lying or wrong.
I've heard two different sides. So let's let him answer this question that you got coming up here. So,
okay,
there you go.
What does
ahead,
vaccinated mean to you?
Vaccinated means you've immediately, right after you've had one shot, you're vaccinated.
One shot. Okay. Do you believe then, with your definition of vaccinated, that the majority of the people in the hospitals currently suffering from COVID and therefore COVID have been vaccinated?
That is probably true. I can't say it for sure of the United States data because the United States doesn't keep the data correctly by that definition. I can tell
you don't know.
I can tell you that even by the stilted definition of 2 weeks afterwards, if you look at the places that keep their data in an unfinancially conflicted way, such as Great Britain, you are more likely to have a positive test and have symptoms if you're vaccinated than if you're not.
So for those of you that were listening to that, he doesn't know. So his definition of vaccinated was immediately after one shot. And I asked him, in your opinion, are the people in the hospitals right now for COVID vaccinated? And he says he doesn't know. And the answer, of course,
in all fairness, he is not an ER doctor.
Not vaccinated.
But I don't know who would really. Dr. Galvin would probably know that because he is an ER doctor. So in all fairness, I don't think Dr. Stock is intaking.
And that data isn't collected. By my definition of vaccination, that data isn't being collected anywhere in the United States.
We left having an actual knowledge and offering a factual conclusion a long time ago.
Well, Kevin, given a man who says he hasn't read any of the literature, I don't know how you make that claim.
How could I?
But I have read that literature.
I did open one of your articles, and it was about people that had had a full organ transplant, which I don't think is really applicable to most Americans.
Hey, Kevin.
Right.
We had a fraternity brother that had the whoopee procedure or whatever that had died from the COVID, and he had been vaccinated. So, Paul Russ, he was about my age. So, I do actually know somebody that had a full body, which is really crazy. But hey, Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and get because I think we're at an impasse here. I think this is something that
get warmed up
numbers and we'll get this together. But you asked some interesting questions, young man. So
wait until I can read them. Wait until I can read the documents.
All right. Well, hey, hey, Dr. Stock is our leading viewer, so we would have him back on any time. And
I'll be your second leading. I'm happy. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that hate me, but let's do this again. This is fun. Dr. Stock, another personal.
It's all about love on this show. It's all about love. So, hey, Kevin, thanks for coming on, and we're going to have you on for some other stuff because I like your fire. I like your fire, and but I do need to work on you on interrupting people, so you'll fit right in with this group.
You got whoa. You saw Donald Trump in that first interview. He lit his hair on fire and sawed his arms off, and you all loved it. So
I'm not no Trump guy. Come on now.
Let's not. No, I don't want to hear it. You guys, if I had a different viewpoint, you would have eaten it up and loved it.
We have that. So, all right. Well, hey, I appreciate that. What we're going to do now is we're going to play Peeps on the Streets, and then we're going to bring the panel on, and they're going to get to grill Dr. Stock because it's obviously barbecue Dr. Stock night tonight. So let's get on with it. So
low and slow, baby. Low and slow.
Let's roll it. Hey, thanks, Kevin. Peace out.
See you, man. Be good, brother.
This is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And we're up here in Castleton, Indiana today to ask the peeps on the streets a few questions. Okay. Well, let's see. Do you know who Dr. Stock is?
Not really, no.
Not really? All right. What do you think about the mask and vaccine mandates?
I think the mask didn't work, and it's just to make politicians and people feel comfortable.
And how about the vax?
The vax is tragic.
All right.
How many people they killed?
All right. So do you think we're ever going to get through this COVID situation?
I think there's a guy in Florida named DeSantis, and he's leading the way by what he's doing in Florida, and I think he could end up at the White House and maybe save the country.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you know who Dr. Stock is?
I do not.
You do not. What do you think about the masks and vaccine mandates?
Well, I think they're overused, one, and a lot of people don't have the right to make the choice. So it really has, the masks really haven't worked. A lot of the, I work in healthcare, HR, and sadly I don't have a voice because I have to follow and be in compliance. And it's very sad because I do see nurses and doctors that do call on a regular basis saying that they don't have a right. And it's the truth of the matter because I don't have a right as well, but we are silenced.
All right. Do you think we're ever going to get through this COVID situation?
Actually, COVID, year to year, the flu virus, which is COVID, and with COVID being the 19th virus since we've been tracking it since the Spanish influenza. So COVID, basically, it's a new strain each year. So now we've gone out of COVID because it was the 19th year, and we're moving into the next strain because each flu virus evolves.
All right. Do you know who Dr. Stock is?
Yes, I do.
Do you think Dr. Stock is a quack?
Hardly.
All right. I just asked that question to give him a little business. But, hey, what do you think about the mask mandates and the vaccine mandate?
Well, that's BS, if I can use the initials.
Yeah, initials. It's a clean show.
Yeah, there isn't any reason for either of those things. But I think the bigger question is how did we ever get those in the first place, and how did they travel top down through our society and everybody and government support it?
Yeah, that is a good question. Do you think we're ever going to get through this COVID pandemic?
Well, it looks like they've already shut it off. We're seeing that we're getting a little bit of respite from government overreach and whatever else is causing it, and they're on to their next thing. So I expect we're going to be seeing whatever that is.
Yeah, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Do you know who Dr. Stock is?
John, I don't know who Dr. Stock is. I look forward to finding out.
All right. What do you think about the vax mandate and the mask mandate?
Yeah, the thing I don't like is the word mandate. I think we all ought to be able to be given all the information that's available, and each one of us make up our own mind based upon our personal health and our personal preferences.
All right. Do you think we're ever going to get out of this corona situation?
Well, John, when you say ever, that's a long time. So, yes, I do think we're going to make it through. One, I think God's in control. Two, I think, we're going to learn more. And three, we're probably going to have to learn to live with viruses of sorts. And hopefully it'll become a thing like the annual flu and people still deciding whether to get vaccinated or not accordingly.
All right. Spoken like a pastor. Thank you very much. Do you know who Dr. Stock is?
Yes.
Do you think Dr. Stock's a quack?
No.
How do you feel about the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates?
Don't care much for them.
All right. A final question. Do you think we're ever going to get out of this pandemic situation with COVID?
I hope so, but I doubt it.
And that'll do it up here in Castleton, Indiana. Hope you enjoyed the Peeps on the Streets.
John?
Yeah, and Dan, I'm going to need you to come back in again because we're going to every 10 minutes you're going to have to come out and come back in. So I'll talk to the people while you do that. And there we go. Hey everybody, this is just fun technology tonight, isn't it?
Yes.
Boy, Kevin sure fired up our chat there. I couldn't keep up with it by how it was going. So, yeah, we'll get Dr. Stock on here and then we'll get on with this thing. So let's see here. Let's see what this is going to look like here. I think it looks like that. Uh-oh, I got the wrong button.
I asked my wife to quit screening the movie she's watching if you'd like.
Yeah, that might work.
That would probably help a little bit.
One moment.
Bandwidth hog.
So we'll put Lucy on the spot first. Hey, Lucy, how are you doing tonight? You're not having any technical difficulties. I have them all tonight. And Dr. Stock.
Hey, there's always a designated a-hole, and tonight it's not me. So, we should definitely bring Kevin back on again.
Yeah, Ed's like Ed's laughing up there. I'm gonna bring Ed on here, and I'm just got to say, hey, it's too bad about the 49ers. Yeah, you got a friend now.
Oh man. Sore spot.
Yeah.
So the worst part is I absolutely hate the Rams. I grew up in Anaheim. The Rams left. That's why I'm a 49ers fan. So that was the worst day of ever. Yes.
Yeah, ever since they traded Rosie Greer, I don't like the Rams. And that was like in the 70s. That's before you were born probably. So, but Tiffany, I'm going to bring Tiffany out here. Tiffany's got her Bengals jersey. Yeah, there she is. Oh, you cat lovers.
Meow.
They're all good. So,
And my Joe Burrow and my Cam Newton starter kit. My Joe Burrow Cam Newton starter kit.
You're good. You're good. So, it's all that. Well, Dr. Stock, we're going to put him back out here. He's actually got a strobe light effect going now. I don't know, what, where he's getting his internet from. It's probably United Airlines Spirit Airlines.
Spirit.
The free modem from Spectrum. My wife and I were just talking today about how it's got to
go. All that money you're making off the COVID, you should be buying a new modem.
Yeah, I wish.
Satellite if you want to, right? So hey, it's good to have you back, and we have the panel here, and we have tons of questions, and I know you got tons of answers. So we're going to get right to it. I'm going to start with Lucy because even Lucy was thinking Kevin was a little tough on you there. I don't know what's up with that. So Lucy, go ahead. You got a question or a comment for Dr. Stock?
Yeah, it's both a question and a comment because words of art are extremely important. The definition of something is extremely important, and from profession to profession, the definition of things is going to change. So vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Unvaccinated does not mean free from vaccination. And so, Dr. Stock, you've been following this more closely than I have. How have you seen the definition of unvaccinated change? My understanding is the current definition of unvaccinated is you have not yet reached 14 days post second shot.
Depending, some places when they're looking at side effects, they'll do it 3 weeks after second shot. The problem is that that's just not rational as a definition. And the reason, if I were to do a trial of blood pressure medicine versus placebo, we would never start counting the effect of the treatment 1 month after you started the medicine to see what had happened when the blood pressure was down a month later, because the treatment starts having effects and side effects from the moment the treatment begins. In fact, this is especially important if you're trying to rule out antibody-dependent enhancement, because it starts doing things to the immune system right away when that's going on. And so the fact that the research has been so terribly botched because they used a definition of vaccinated and unvaccinated that was really not rational to either the safety or the efficacy of determining the treatment, we have less than adequate research to answer these questions. So we're having to read the tea leaves as best we can from the botched research. And the least botched research we have comes from Great Britain and Israel. And They still use some of those breakdowns, but they're a little bit better on their definitions. They have unvaccinated, which is you've not had a shot at all. They've had partially vaccinated within 3 weeks of your first shot, partially vaccinated more than 3 weeks after your first shot, and then fully vaccinated, which they call 2 weeks after your second shot. And so this little bit more granular, useful data is probably the best data for quoting for getting the effect of these vaccines. Sadly, your point is right on, Lucy. We have basically used definitions that are useless definitions to prove the points that we want to prove, rather than using definitions that will actually describe the effects of the treatments being looked at. And as a scientist, that's sad to me to see this become a war of definitions rather than science.
And that's good. I want to get a question from one of our viewers in here. They've been burning up this chat, and this is one that we sort of covered on this, but I want to try to cover this a little bit. So, he says, do you think shedding is possible? And I guess he's talking about shedding with the vaccine. Is it still happening? And what's the difference?
So I don't know if I've seen any formal studies that could well answer that. So I want everybody to know that this answer is a fly by the seat of my pants, my best guess. And that is my suspicion, is that no, when you take a vaccine in, you are not exhaling pure spike protein in your exhalation. It is probably more likely, if you get sick after spending time with someone vaccinated, that vaccinated person has shed an increased amount of virus onto you, or that you've gone to their home, which, because they shed more virus, the virus concentration will be higher in that air than it would be if you went to the outside, or if you went to a place that was occupied by a mixture of vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals.
So, is it safe to say that, heck, there's a lot of this stuff we just don't know?
Yes, the research has been done terribly.
Yeah, and it's trying to collect data and different things and all that. So let's see, Ed. Let's go with you. Let's see if you can fire up the audience like your Democrat counterpart just did. Let's see if you can bring that fire like he did.
I can't, because I'm a terrible villain. I'm just a terrible villain. The last time you were on Dr. Stock, like you and I, we have some common ground on the one thing that we have clearly defined throughout this whole pandemic as the pre-existing conditions. And for some reason, we still seem to be stuck on this argument over masks, everything else, but we're not talking about some of those preventable conditions and healthy lifestyles and any of that. And did you just hit on that again? Because to me, I'm screaming, because I'm like, all the stuff we have research on that. We know how to fix that, but we're not talking about that.
Well, sadly, one of the things that get most overlooked in this is the effect on diet on the immune system function. People need to realize that the virus isn't what kills you. It's your out of control inflammatory response and immune system response. And those things go out of control largely because you eat really disastrous food, load up your cell membranes with lots of saturated fats, makes them stiff as a rock, and you don't have the proper retinoid content to make it so they can handle oxidative stress. And you're low on vitamin D, and you're low on zinc, and you're low on selenium, and a lot of people are low on iron, and iodine is pretty ubiquitous as well. And those are all low-hanging fruit that are very cheap, easy to take care of, and solves many other diseases besides COVID-19. And sad is that this has come down to a big discussion of vaccines, and no one's really put attention on the non-vaccine options, even before we get to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and prednisone. Just the fact that we completely ignored all of the other variables that had nothing to do with prescription medication. It's very sad, especially to a functional medicine doctor who knows what those can do.
Yep. So, hey, Dr. Stock, you're going to have to go reset your again, and then we'll come back with Tiffany on a question, because hey, look, Tiffany, you're the center stage there. You got to unmute.
I love listening to Dr. Stock talk.
Yeah, we're going to get him back out here. So
I'm betting my wife might get a new router after today.
Yeah, Let's see if it's all mixed up. Yeah. So, and then it's weird. It flashes when you come on, and then your sound sort of goes off. So, let's talk quick. So, Tiffany, go ahead with your question.
Dr. Stock, it's always a pleasure to see you, and you are making my internet look so good. So, I feel like I've got NASA in here working for me. So thank you for that. And piggybacking on what Ed said, I just love it when you talk about things that people can do to own their health and up their immune system. So I just always love to hear you share that knowledge and information with people. And going back to our early guest, Kevin, is there anything that you would like to tell him that you didn't have a chance to tell him because he was peppering questions at you so quickly? Is there anything that you'd like for him to know?
Yeah, when you look at the best available data, and that's what we have to do, people should know that we actually have placebo-controlled randomized blinded trial data from these vaccines, both at the 3 and 6 month time, and they both show the same thing. They're more likely to to hospitalize you than a placebo is. They're more likely to give you symptoms than a placebo is. They're more likely to cause you a disability than a placebo is. I'll let anybody decide to take the vaccine after that. But what's been suppressed about this is that the data we do have has not only shown that, but a trend towards increased death. As a matter of fact, in the data that was leaked out from the FDA that they're trying desperately to take 75 years to release to the American public, the boosters actually showed that compared to placebo, there were more dead people in the booster group than there was in placebo. And so that's the thing that I would tell people is the most important is net effect of any treatment we do. If I give you a blood pressure medicine that lowers you to 120/80 and makes your liver fall out on the floor and you die, who cares about your blood pressure, right? It's the net effect of these vaccines which have shown that overall hospitalization rate goes up, overall symptom rate goes up, overall disability rate goes up, severe morbidity goes up, and a trend towards increased death goes up. This is what concerns me about these vaccines. Plus, we had many other treatments available that were less expensive, much better studied, well-known safety, and of even better efficacy, even at reducing the degree of spread and shed. And so the sad thing about this story is that I assume for money, because it can't be from the compassionate use of science, that the optimal solutions to the COVID-19 problem never got offered, never got put in media, and never got used. And this is a big failing of biochemistry in my profession.
You know, Dr. Stock, as I listen to you talk and I think about people getting, what do they call it? Like when people don't want to get boosters anymore, it'll be vaccine hesitancy or anxiety or apathy or whatever. I think that you will become twice as popular when people realize that vaccines can only get you part of the way, and that we're really going to have to talk about real world solutions to living with this long term. So expect your popularity to go up exponentially once people realize that the vaccines aren't going to get us all the way there. Thank you.
My hope is that the science data becomes popular. Frankly, I will be happy with my anonymity.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
The data and the science, that I do want to become popular again.
Here you go, Dr. Stock. We're going to have Kevin's wife wants to get in on this. Here's the question. What is Miss-C, Dr. Stock? So what is that? I don't even know what that is.
Multiple inflammatory syndrome from COVID. I don't know what the CDC's definition of this term is. It's something that multiple inflammatory syndrome was initially, as I understand it, used in children. But it's kind of like, hey, my immune system inflammatory regulation's gone out of control, and COVID is the thing that set it off. My guess is, and this is a pure guess because I don't know if I collect the data, it's probably chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is a condition that's very, very common but very little known. And that's probably when you get into chronic inflammatory response syndrome from getting COVID-19 as the straw that breaks the camel's back. I can also tell you that my understanding is because the NIH decided to reimburse hospitals differently based upon vaccine status and the diagnosis they used, that the hospitals have been reclassifying vaccinated people who developed COVID-19 disease as MIS-C, because there's overlap of the diagnosis, and it paid better to call them MIS-C. and that's part of the thing that screwed up the CDC's data is a misclassification for financial incentive. Not the only thing that's been done.
I was wondering about. Now let's go back to the scene of the crime and circle the wagons a little bit on these masks in our schools, because that's pretty much what you were talking about in the very beginning. So I want to put this up here right now. I asked a question on People Over Politics, and this is one of our most participated in polls. Do you think it is psychologically damaging to force kids to wear masks in school? We had 101 yes and 29 no. So what do you think about that? I know you're not a psychologist, and I actually play one on TV, so I have my theories, but I want to hear what you have to say.
The answer is clearly yes in my book. And I tell people, we have a tendency to think of psychology as your mommy and daddy didn't give you no good learning. Not to look at psychology from, hey, what is the biochemical effect on brain cell function? And I can tell you, if you take a brain, make it low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide, you're going to force the brain to react to that because it measures that all day long. And we know that when you do that, you're actually going to put the brain into a state that's kind of like being choked all day long, where it feels like it has to divert its attention away from other things and focus more heavily on the gaining of respiration. And you simply can't do that without having an effect on brain function. It doesn't even get into the sensory deprivation effects that come from these viral avoidance measures like masking, which takes out the majority of facial expression, and the social distancing, which turns everybody from a three-dimensional thing to a two-dimensional thing that brains don't work with as well. And all of this for something that never had any chance of having a benefit. Remember, there's no way to avoid this virus unless you lock yourself in a box with a HEPA filter the rest of your life. Because the virus isn't going away. It's not possible to eradicate a viral respiratory pathogen that has animal reservoirs. And so there was no possible benefit, and this was known back in 2008. So it's only a cruelty to do this to children, especially since they have almost no chance of a serious injury or death. So they can't possibly get a benefit from masking. And I hate the argument that, we have to do this to protect the old people. When in the world did we ever use children as the human shields for adults? I can tell you that you can prove to me tomorrow that masking my granddaughter would save my life. I would not have it done. This is just not, we don't use children for that. I would rather die than see a child used for that.
Yeah, well, hey, Dr. Stock, I know you're not going to believe this, but guess what? You got to come back in because you're bad.
Let's face it. Every tyranny is based upon saving the children. Even Hitler posed with photo opportunities with, beautiful little children.
Yeah, well,
so
I'm actually substitute teaching tomorrow, and I see these kids, and they do not wear these masks properly, and it's hard to understand a seventh grader without a mask on. So to me, it's more of a convenience.
My children do not wear masks in their school, and they're separated. I just had to go buy new glasses for my son because they've got him sitting so far back that he can't see the board. But we made the decision as a family, and each of my children decided that they would rather exercise their right to breathe freely and to not have a piece of cloth where they are rebreathing their own carbon dioxide and creating a petri dish, for themselves to bring, colonies of bacteria back into their lungs.
All right. Well, you're up next for a question on Dr. Stock. We're going to do one more round with them. And then guess what? I mean, our show is it's already
7 minutes.
It's already super long. And
we spent half of it dealing with Spectrum's modem. So
yeah, well, we know what you're getting for Christmas. But
Valentine's Day.
Yep. So Lucy's on deck, Dr. Stock. We're going to do one more round of questions, and then I think we're going to do conspiracy theory, and then we're going to call it a night because this has been a very interesting show. We have record comments in our chat here tonight. So you always bring a good discussion. So Lucy, fire away.
My question for you, Dr. Stock, is on relative risk. I'm an unvaccinated person with a healthy immune system, asymptomatic to COVID, which means that I likely don't have it, never taken a test. And the relative risk of being around people that are vaccinated. My personal 30-second story is my brother and father both hid from me the fact that they'd gotten vaccinated. I went and hung out with them. I then got my period, and my entire hormonal system was screwed up for 6 months between passing blood clots the size of walnuts. Sorry if it's too, TMI, but that's really what happened to me.
Doctor, I hear it.
Yeah, amenorrhea, and then I've had 10 kids. I've used my uterus a lot. It should be mad at me, but the fact of the matter is my hormones have been so good, especially as a 50-year-old woman that does not appear to be perimenopausal. But my experience was devastating on my hormonal system after just hanging out with my brother and father. So I'm curious about that relative risk, because people are saying that I'm killing their grandmas, and I think it's patently ridiculous.
Well, there's to make evidence to say that either a vaccinated or an unvaccinated person is killing other people is not factual. The animal reservoirs are going to kill people if you don't. So I don't want anybody shunning the vaccinated. Yes, I believe that they get infected and shed more virus than people who are just natively infected on average. But on the other hand, you are going to contract this virus sometime or the other. Now, that said, everybody needs to know that whenever you get a viral infection, even if you have a great immune system, you always get inflammation from the infection. May not be great, but that inflammation has an effect on ovarian function. And so if somebody says, I got COVID by whatever source, from a vaccinated house, an unvaccinated house, walked by a dog who had COVID, I would expect that to have an effect on menstrual function, especially in a female who is nearing the end of the ovary's life, since God didn't design that gonad very well. Or I guess he designed it well for an animal who's going to be eaten by tigers by the age of 35, but not so good if you're going to make it past that.
All right, let's see. Let's go with Tiffany next. Let's see what Tiffany has. I mean, she's still like TMI with Lucy's comments. I can see her face, the blood rushing from her face.
You have to talk a little bit more about this, COVID and menstruation. I'd never ever thought about that. So
you have to remember that inflammation, no matter how you bring on the inflammation, it has an effect on ovarian function. Infectious inflammation, I mean, the inflammation when you smack your finger with a hammer is one thing, but there's different types of inflammation, and infectious inflammation probably has the greatest effect of any of the different types of inflammation on other organ systems, especially when you get the inflammation bad enough it can cause a systemic response. That's like the fatigue, the aches, the fevers, and chills. And you should routinely expect that when it happens, that ovarian function is going to be disturbed for a time. Unfortunately, God rigged the ovary to do some work that the testicle doesn't have to do. We guys get to be lazy in this whole equation. We don't have as big a biochemical hurdle to jump over as women do, and that hurdle makes it harder for them to not get tripped up by inflammation. So having a low vitamin D level is going to be harder on the gonad function of a woman than a male. But anything that has an effect on inflammation, especially infectious inflammation, is going to have an effect on ovarian function.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, this whole thing is, we're 2 years into this, pretty much 2 years into this, and it, here in Indiana, we have like this most cases we've ever had, and it seems like everything that's been done is not really working. So, it's just very
counterproductive.
What's that?
Or is counterproductive.
Yeah, I mean that's where we have some really good discussions on that. Ed, I see you up there grinding some gears. What do you got?
He's concerned about his ovary.
I was just, being lazy up here.
He was being a gonad or whatever. Lazy gonad.
I was like, TMI, and then Tiffany was like, nope, we need more of that. My question to you, Dr. Stockwood, we've already talked about diet and everything else. For people trying to avoid this, I mean, beyond, what we've already talked about with the, vaccine, give me some practical stuff for everyday people that can walk away from this show that, if there's anything more that we haven't discussed.
Yeah, so take vitamin D or 25 hydroxy vitamin D, whichever you need to do to get your 25 hydroxy vitamin D blood level greater than 55, hopefully greater than 70. That's probably the biggest single thing. That reduces the overall risk of dying by 75% just by that. A zinc taste test. Make sure you have a good enough zinc that when you take, by the way, this is on Cyril and Dorothea's Foundation for Medical Freedom website. Enough zinc that you pass the zinc latency test, as it says on that website. These are probably the two biggest things you can do. Eat a diet which is very low in processed plant material, but very high in unprocessed plant material. And these things alone probably put you down so that your risk of death from COVID-19 is probably 0.1% or less. Those are the simple, easy ones. The biotoxin disease, avoiding water-damaged buildings and Lyme infection and root canal teeth that are infected. This is a little tougher to pull off. But those are things that any human being can do.
All right. All right. Well, I guess, one of the questions I've had, and I think you've had this question before, and then we're going to go to the conspiracy theory, which, is going to be awesome tonight. But, so natural immunity as opposed to this, I guess the vaccine would be a what you call a forced immunity. It seems like we're not getting, people aren't getting credit for having survived the COVID and hey, that should count as vaccinated. And how long might that natural immunity last compared to, say, a shot that's been boosted now 3 times, I think.
So we have some data that can contribute to that.
Hold on, Dr. Stock. Can you come back in one more time? Because I want to hear, I didn't care about Tiffany's question, but I want to hear my answer.
Whatever.
I love you, Tiffany. You're the best. Hey, Ed, how about them 49ers? He's back. He's back. Let's put it back out there.
I'm a Bengals fan now.
Yeah, that's.
Yay! Yay!
Yeah, it's all right. Let's get everybody back where they go. All right, there you go. Well, Tiffany. All right, there you go. Okay, now answer my question quick.
Sure. So natural immunity has not only been shown to be much better than vaccine immunity for COVID-19, it's probably true for every disease. Vaccines never seem to get you as much a response as long as the natural infection does. That's not an argument against vaccines. Some vaccines I'm a supporter of. I can tell you that we know that from the SARS and MERS coronavirus, they had 18 years of immunity. We still found that those guys 18 years later had immunity. How much immunity? Tougher to measure. I think the biggest problem we're having is everybody thinks antibodies mean immunity, and that's not true for viral disease. And so they're not getting credit for this. The best done studies, again, research is credibly done, but the best done studies say that it's probably in the neighborhood of at least 13 times the benefit to get natural immunity, which can be done safely, than it is to get vaccine immunity. And that's just short term. Where if you consider to look at the waning of these vaccines as the most likely outcome of antibody-dependent enhancement comes in, the more you booster, you would expect this to make things worse and worse. Whereas you don't have to seem to keep boosting natural immunity. People who recovered from the original Alpha variant had much better than 99, and the Qatari data was 99.4% protection from having symptoms, which is much better than any vaccine's ever shown. And that was up to, I think, 9 months to a year after their initial case was infected. And it showed about the same with Omicron when it came on, that if you'd already recovered from other Omicron, you got symptoms, but you didn't get the severe lung disease. You got much less than if you were vaccinated with Omicron, did much less to you than if you were vaccinated, if you had already recovered. And I think this can only be explained by, hey, it's just financially beneficial to downplay natural immunity and to play up vaccine immunity, even though it's not as good. And there's no evidence it's good. It's also less risky, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that fear does drive this. And I think, obviously the psychology of us as people is, we want to take a pill to get better. We've been, ever since cod liver oil, methylate, and chemotherapy, all this stuff, it's got to kill you to make you better. It seems like, we got to take a pill instead of maybe doing some of the things you talked about, or as Ed talked about, the exercise. But so last time I had you on the show, I had COVID, and that was around Labor Day, and my taste was gone for, 2 months. It was starting to come back. So over Christmas with this breakout, I lost my taste and smell again. Does that mean I sort of got infected again, or is that just my zinc was low?
I have to give you best guess because can't really say much without physical examining a complete history and some lab studies. But it's very likely that you got Omicron again.
No other symptoms whatsoever. So
Yeah, they
And
tell
then
me
I thought,
that smell and taste loss is less a component with Omicron than it was with other variants. It's more sore throat and fever.
I had one of them, and I'm telling you what, it was interesting to have that no taste and smell. It's just the weirdest thing out of the whole thing. And I thought I have bronchitis, asthma, and all those. I get upper respiratory, but I got the COVID and I didn't have any of that. I thought I'd be coughing my head off, but it just was totally the weirdest thing I've ever had. I just felt clammy, no taste and smell, and I was expecting to die. So, and none of that happened other than those
How
two
was
things.
your period?
With that, I'm glad I didn't hear that, Tiffany. I am so glad I didn't hear that. Oh, this would be a good time to announce that we have a replacement for Tiffany next week. We have George, and I swear to God, I got George Sturgiopoulos coming in for Tiffany. I just didn't tell her before the show. He's going to come on as a guest for Tiffany. So, you're going to see Big George next week. So you get a week off, Tiffany, for that. That'll do it.
Well, I guess that answers your question, Tiffany, doesn't it?
I know, those hormones are really messed up. Damn.
I tell you what, man, it's like that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. They got a bill going through the House on something about that, and maybe I could set the women's track record or something. Maybe I don't know. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. Wow. Okay. Well, hey, we're gonna do a conspiracy theory here. So I'm going to play this, and then it's going to be a hot mess because I got all these things and majiggies here. So get your tinfoil hats ready, and Dr. Stock will get you off the big board there and get you back into the other thing, and you can laugh at our conspiracies here. So here you go.
Hey y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week.
Oh yeah, we're bringing Kevin back on this one. He'll have to have a conspiracy theory. So, all right, antenna's off a little bit there. So, but yeah, so I had a really good one and I forgot it, but I had two of them. I remembered the worst of the two. So, Ed, I'm going to start with you because you had, and you can still use your one from last week, but you could probably mix it in with a little 49ers folklore there. You need to.
John, I just forgot mine.
Actually, I have one.
All right,
yeah,
we'll come back to you, Ed. Okay. I think you got the Corona brain. You got the Corona fall.
And a heavy period too. So my conspiracy theory is that Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. The powers that be want it to happen so that America will have a Joe that they love.
Oh, who they?
Oh, come on. We need to go there with that.
All right, man.
Can we just stop right there?
Kevin and Dan, you're going to have to understand, Tiffany has never had a conspiracy theory so far. It's usually Bigfoot, this or that. But I did hear that. Okay, go ahead, Ed. Have you got yours now? Have you got yours?
I just remembered what last week's was. So, yes.
Okay, good. I remember what it was.
And yeah, it was that Aaron Rodgers actually tanked the game against the 49ers because basically Spirit Airlines offered him a great deal to be their sponsor, because when you need someone not to deliver in the big spot, Spirit Airlines is your airlines.
Yeah, plus Aaron never had a shot. So Ooh. Okay, Lucy, what do you got?
Okay, so I don't know if you all have been watching the huge truck convoy in Ottawa, Canada, where they've gone to basically the equivalent of Washington, D.C., the House of Parliament and Parliament Hill and all that good stuff in Canada. But there is talk on the internet, and I don't know, this is conspiracy theory time, right? That this could be the start of a false flag event. So hear me out on this. The truckers in a very patriotic and unsuspecting way have joined the convoy. They have had zero arrests. It's been very peaceful because, they're Canadian. They're super polite, right? They're like actually picking up the streets everywhere and shoveling off the snow. And it's awesome to see. However, we've had a supply chain issue now as a result of the elites wanting us to not eat meat because Bill Gates, of course, has Beyond Meat. And we also have the supply chain issues, which I believe were created intentionally to get us used to the empty shelves that will suffer under the coming communism.
You have too much confidence. You have too much confidence in government that they could intentionally do that sort of thing. But go ahead.
I have all the confidence in Satan and the fact that this is a spiritual war, and that's absolutely evil. So here's the real question. Will the truckers be used as a scapegoat? And they will say that it was actually the truckers that are now causing the supply chain issues. When in fact the supply chain issues and the culling of millions of pigs and chickens and cows all over the world was in fact caused in order for us to be forced to eat Soylent Green.
Oh my God. I'm going to suggest something novel. It could be more than one factor.
Yeah. So, hey, Kevin, do you have a conspiracy?
I'll give you a list of factors.
No, I don't actually. Sorry.
You could make something up like I'm getting ready to do. So here's mine. I've listened to all these three here. I've listened to them, and this is going to be interesting for the Bengals on the Super Bowl because they're going to have a mysterious COVID breakout, and they're going to have to bring Bigfoot off the practice squad, and also Dr. Fauci's going to be called in to be the coach for the Bengals, and yet look, he's all he's practicing and trying to tackle a Bigfoot, all that hair and everything, you just slide off of him. He'll just run for more yards than Super Bowl history.
He's
He'll
7 foot tall.
Franco Harris look like a school child. It'll be something else. And Fauci will be over there coaching them with his mask on, 2 or 3 of them, and it's just going to be a grand event. And then they're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers for the halftime show because whoever they got's going to have the COVID. So, hey, I wanted to throw it all in there. And also, Bill Gates is going to come in and announce the game. So I think I covered everybody there, didn't I? Pretty much on that.
You didn't get in Klaus Schwab and the New World Order along with the World Economic Forum, so you missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Taxation is theft.
We actually had a conspiracy theory that was good. So, Kevin, Dr. Stock, we appreciate you coming on tonight, and hey, we'll just keep on COVID in the USA. Goodbye, and it's been a great show tonight. Let me make sure I find an ending to this thing. So there it is. I got it. All right, everybody. Peace out. See you on the other side. Next week, we do have, I wasn't kidding, we do have George Stodiopoulos and Fort Tiffany. That was pretty good timing, though, when I announced it. And we're going to talk about voting 2 primaries to get on the ballot for the Democrats and Republicans. And so we're going to have a bunch of different guests on for this. So, hey, so we'll catch you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And it's been a great show.
Tiffany knows how to tackle Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's right.